Hey, for walking out after Mom gave my sister the bed and us the floor? My name is Rebecca Thompson. I am 41 years old. I am an accountant. I have a 5-year-old daughter named Sophie and a husband who is the kind of man you only recognize as exceptional after a lifetime of experience. I grew up in a quiet suburban neighborhood outside Austin, Texas, in a yellow corner house with a driveway gate that squeaked every time it opened. My mother, Patricia, was always the gravitational center of the family. Not in a loving way that draws people closer with warmth, but in a way that absorbed everything around it. Like a black hole that pulls in light and never gives anything back. I have a sister, Jessica, 2 years older than me. For as long as I can remember, Jessica was always the favorite. That is not the distorted memory of a resentful little girl. It is a fact that my own aunt, my mother's sister, confirmed to me when I was already in my 30s. Your mom was always afraid of losing Jessica. You never threatened to leave, Rebecca. And she always knew that. But all this is context. The important thing is to start with that night in October of last year. I had driven 3 hours from our home in the Dallas suburbs with Sophie in the back seat, singing nursery rhymes and stopping once at a gas station so she could use the bathroom and I could drink a bitter coffee that did not help at all. I arrived at my mother's house at 6 in the evening with the car engine still warm and the trunk full of groceries I had bought at the supermarket before leaving: chicken, rice, beans, ingredients for fresh salsa, 4 pounds of brisket for the Sunday barbecue, and a carrot cake that I woke up at 6 in the morning to bake because my mother had once said years ago that she loved carrot cake with frosting. Jessica arrived 2 hours later with her husband Todd and their 2 teenage sons. My mother opened the door as if she were expecting honored guests. A long hug, kisses on the boys' cheeks, holding hands. So glad you came, my love. For me, when I arrived, she had simply opened the door, glanced at the grocery bags and asked, "Did you buy sour cream?" Because she needed it for the salsa. I had not bought sour cream. I had to run to the corner store to buy it. The evening went by the way those evenings always go in that house. My mother and Jessica were in the living room chatting while I cooked. David, my husband, who had arrived in his own car because of work, stayed to help me in the kitchen without complaining like he always does. Sophie ran down the hallway playing with her older cousins who barely paid attention to her, but she tried anyway, the way kids try when they really want to be accepted. Around 10 in the evening, when dinner was already over and the dishes were being washed, I went to get the suitcases to take them up to the bedroom. I went straight to the guest room, the little back room my mother keeps for visitors, a space with a full-size bed, an old but functional wardrobe, and a star-shaped nightlight that Sophie loved. Sophie had asked me during the whole drive if the nightlight would still be there. I told her yes. The door was open. Inside, Jessica's suitcase was on the bed, Todd's sneakers on the floor, the boys' backpacks leaning against the wall. I went to look for my mother in the living room. She did not turn around when I asked her. She was watching television with the volume too high for that hour, and only turned it down when I repeated the question. What she told me, with a calmness that to this day unsettles me more than any raised voice, was that she had left us 2 things in the hallway closet. 2 blue camping sleeping bags with a zipper stuck on one side. She handed them to me as if she were handing me beach towels. "You guys are staying in the living room. It is no problem. It is just one night." Sophie was by my side. She looked at the sleeping bags, then looked at me, then looked down the hallway where her cousins had disappeared into the guest room, and asked in a quiet voice, "Are we going to sleep on the floor, Mommy?" And I told her yes. David appeared in the hallway. He saw the sleeping bags in my hands. He did not say anything, but the way he looked at me in that moment was one I knew well, the look of someone holding a question whose answer he knows is going to hurt. I unrolled the bags on the living room floor. The nylon slipped on the hardwood. Sophie tried to help me stretch out one corner, but the other one kept rolling back up. We stayed there, the 2 of us kneeling, trying to make it work, while from the back room I heard Jessica's television on and my mother's laughter in the hallway, saying goodnight to her grandsons with kisses on the forehead. That lasted maybe 3 minutes, but it was enough for something I had carried for 18 years to finally weigh what it actually weighed. To understand what happened that night, you need to understand what came before. My father, Anthony, died when I was 23 years old. A massive heart attack on a Tuesday afternoon. He was pruning the backyard. My mother called me screaming. I dropped everything. I did not have a car back then, so I caught the next bus. I arrived at the hospital in time to sign the necessary paperwork because my mother could not even hold the pen. Jessica arrived later when he was already gone, and stayed hugging my mother while I sorted out everything that needed to be done. The forms, the non-existent life insurance, the past due bills, talking to the bank. My father had not left any money. He left a paid-off house, a small retirement pension that was for my mother, and a credit card debt that I did not discover until the following week. He also left a conversation I had with him 3 weeks before he died, when he was in the hospital for chest pain that we thought was less serious than it was. He took my hand and said, "Rebecca, you are the strong one. Take care of your mother and your sister for me." I was 23 years old. I said yes, and I took care of them. For 18 years I took care of them. Not in a dramatic way, not like in the movies, but in an invisible, steady way, the kind of care that is only noticed when it stops being there. I sent my mother money every month. First a few dollars when I was just starting my career, then more. Later, when I became a partner at the firm, I sent her a considerable amount every month, straight from my account to hers, as if it were a bill I never let go past due. I paid to repair her roof twice. The second time she did not even tell me it was leaking. I found out through my aunt when I went to visit and saw the bucket in the hallway. I paid without saying a word. When Jessica went through her divorce from her first husband, I was the one who paid the security deposit and the rent for 6 months until she got back on her feet. Jessica never paid me back, but it was fine. I did not do it so she would pay me back. At least that was what I told myself. When Jessica's oldest son, Tyler, wanted to go on a 3-month student exchange program, it was my mother who called me. "Rebecca, you know what this means for the boy. Jessica does not have the means right now." I sent half the cost. The other half I never knew where it came from, but I preferred not to ask. There is a small mother-of-pearl jewelry box that belonged to my paternal grandmother. My grandmother used it to store the earrings she only wore on special occasions. When she died, the box stayed with my mother. Years later, on a birthday visit, I saw it in Jessica's room on the dresser. I asked my mother about it. She said, "I gave it to her. I thought she would like it more." I kept that to myself. I did not say anything. I started cooking my mother's birthday dinner, which I had planned, bought, and prepared all by myself while Jessica slept until noon. That is the structure that held my family together for 18 years. I was the foundation, and the foundation is not seen, it does not receive praise, it has no name in the stories people tell. The foundation is only noticed when it cracks. On the night of the sleeping bags, it cracked. David came looking for me in the kitchen while I was washing the glasses. It was already midnight. The house was silent. He leaned against the sink next to me and said something that was not a question. He just said it like someone reading a fact out loud. "Sophie asked me why her grandma does not love her." I stopped washing the glass. She used those exact words. She said, "Daddy, it is true that grandma does not love us, right? Because if she loved us, we would have a bed." I put the glass in the sink. I looked out the kitchen window into the dark backyard and felt something that was not anger. It was something deeper. It was the realization that my daughter, at 5 years old, had seen in 2 hours what had taken me 18 years to admit. "Get the car ready," I told him. David did not ask anything. He just went. I packed the bags in silence. I did not arrange them well. I folded what was necessary and threw the rest in. Sophie was sleeping in the sleeping bag on the floor, breathing deeply, oblivious to everything. I picked her up while she slept. She buried her nose in my neck like she has done since she was a baby, and I stood there for a second just like that, with her suspended between the floor she did not deserve and the exit I was finally taking. David carried the bags. I went down with Sophie. My mother was in the hallway coming out of the bathroom. She saw the suitcases, she saw Sophie in my arms, and she stood there with that expression I have known since I was a little girl. Not exactly surprise, but an inconvenience she was just figuring out how to label. I told her we were leaving. I said it calmly, not with anger. She said it was ridiculous, that it was almost midnight, that I was exaggerating as always, that I was always making a mountain out of a molehill. Then Jessica's voice came from the hallway. "Are you going to start with your drama again, Rebecca?" I did not answer Jessica. I kept walking. At the door my mother tried one last time. "Rebecca, are you going to ruin everything over a sleeping bag?" And I turned around not out of anger, but because there was something I needed to say, something I had swallowed for so many years that it was already part of me, and I needed to carefully remove it. "Mom, the last time you asked me how I was doing, not what I could do for you but just simply how I was at my dad's funeral 18 years ago." The hallway went quiet in a way I had never felt in that house. I did not wait for an answer. I walked out. The early morning air was cool and clean. David had the car running, the headlights on. I settled Sophie into her car seat. She mumbled something without waking up. I adjusted her little head and closed the door carefully. I got into the car. David did not have to ask anything. We drove out of the street unhurriedly, watching the yellow gate of my mother's house disappear in the rearview mirror. Sophie slept the whole trip. At the toll plaza near Waco, David placed his hand over mine without taking his eyes off the road. He stayed like that until I turned my palm upward and squeezed his hand. We got home at 2 in the morning. I carried Sophie straight to her bed. I tucked her in with her favorite blanket. I turned on the moon-shaped nightlight we had bought for her room, which she never had to ask for because it was already there. I stood at the door watching her sleep in a bed, in her room in her house, and I felt a clarity that was almost physical. The next morning I opened my computer. I am an accountant. When I need to understand something, I put it into numbers. Not because I am cold, but because numbers do not lie the way feelings sometimes lie to us. I opened a file I had been keeping for years, originally for my tax records, where I logged everything I transferred to my mother's and Jessica's accounts. I had never looked at the grand total. I was afraid, I suppose, of what I was going to see. That morning I saw it. Monthly transfers for my mother. 18 years of variable support, adding up to almost $300,000. Remodeling and repairs to her house, $65,000. Contributions for Jessica's expenses, the apartment security deposit, Tyler's exchange program, my niece's Sweet 16 celebration, the kids' tuition. Over $100,000. Total. Close to $500,000. I stared at that figure for an amount of time I cannot calculate. David came in with 2 coffees, placed one next to me, looked at the screen, said nothing for a moment, and then asked, "What are you going to do?" I told him, "I am going to stop." Not out of anger, not as a punishment, but like someone who finally looks at an account that expired a long time ago and decides not to renew the automatic payment. I spent the morning making lists. First, the list of what I was going to stop paying, the monthly transfer to my mother, the annual contribution for school supplies and uniforms for Jessica's kids, which I sent via bank transfer at the start of every year without anyone officially asking me to, but which everyone expected. The 70th birthday party my mother was planning for 2 years from now, which I had already said I would help organize. Then I wrote a short email, no accusations, no list of everything I had done, just facts. "Mom, starting next month I will not be able to make the monthly contributions. I am letting you know ahead of time so you can organize yourself. Rebecca." I saved it in drafts. I stared at it for an hour. Then I thought about Sophie asking why her grandmother did not love her, and I sent it. My mother's response took 2 days. When it arrived, it was a 4-minute voice message. I did not listen to it all the way through the first time. I had to pause halfway because my mother was using my father's name, saying he would be disappointed, that I was being selfish, that she did not know what she had done to deserve this. At the end of the message, after all of that, she said something that stuck with me. "I never asked you for anything, Rebecca." And there it was, the most honest sentence she had said to me in years. She never asked. She simply expected. And I, trained since I was 23 to be the foundation that never asks for recognition, simply delivered. During the following week, Jessica sent me messages, some aggressive, calling me childish, a longer one saying I always did this, that I used money to feel superior, that giving was my way of buying affection because I did not know how to give any other way. I saved that message not to hurt myself, but because it was the most revealing thing she had ever written. She knew exactly what she was saying. She just did not know what that revealed about her, not about me. I did not reply to any of them. Sophie stayed home that week. Kindergarten was on break. One afternoon she walked into the living room with a drawing. A house with windows, a garden, 5 little figures representing people, each with their name written underneath. The names were me, David, Sophie, her paternal grandmother, and her great-grandmother whom she only knows from photos. My mother was not in the drawing. I did not ask Sophie anything. I taped the drawing to the refrigerator. Austin is a city where a lot of people know each other. When something changes in a long-standing family, people find out. My Aunt Linda, my mother's sister, called me 10 days after the email. She lives in a town nearby. We see each other twice a year, but she is the most clear-headed person on my mother's side of the family. She told me what was going on. My mother had called her church friends telling them I was going through a crisis, that I was having marriage problems, that she was worried about me. It was a narrative that framed me as a victim of my own instability and completely erased what happened the night of the sleeping bags. Then Aunt Linda said something that changed me. Rebecca, the people here who truly know you already know. Your mom cannot tell a story where you are the villain without letting slip everything you did for her. She tells on herself. And it was true because by telling her friends I had stopped helping out of nowhere, my mother had to explain what that help was, and by explaining it, the sheer scale of what I had carried became self-evident. 2 weeks later, a longtime friend of my mother, Carol Henderson, sent me a direct message. Rebecca, I know it is not my place, but I want you to know I always saw how much you dedicated yourself to your family. I wish you the best. I did not need anything else. My mother called me again a week later. This time her voice was different, smaller. She said she was having trouble paying the homeowners association fees for the subdivision that month. She said it without accusing me, like someone mentioning the weather. I listened to her. I told her I understood it was going to be a difficult adjustment, and that I thought it was important for her to speak with a bank advisor to reorganize her finances. I said it with genuine kindness, not irony. She went silent. Then she said, "You changed." I answered, "I did not change, Mom. I grew up." She hung up, but this time without slamming the phone. Jessica vanished for 3 weeks. Not a single message. Her husband Todd, who is a quiet and good man, sent me a short text. "Rebecca, I see it. I always saw it. I am so sorry I did not speak up sooner." I replied that he did not have to apologize, that I knew his position was difficult. Jessica's oldest son, Tyler, who was already 16, sent me a message on Instagram. "Auntie, you paid for part of my exchange program, didn't you? I never thanked you properly. Thank you." I had to put my phone down for a moment before replying. That 16-year-old boy had done in one sentence what my entire family had not done in 18 years. 2 months later, on a rainy Saturday in December, my mother showed up at my door. She drove 3 hours from Austin. No warning, no message, just the buzz of the intercom at 10 in the morning and her voice. "It is me. Can I come up?" I let her in. She walked in differently than all the other times, without her Sunday coat, wearing a simple blouse, her hair tied back the way she only wears it when she is not trying to impress anyone. David took Sophie to the backyard under the pretext of feeding the cat, and my mother and I sat in the kitchen with 2 glasses of water between us. She started down the hardest path. Admitting it. She said she knew she was wrong that night, that she knew it in the moment, but she told herself it was just one night and the kids would not remember. She said she spent weeks trying to understand why she did it, and the only honest answer she found was that it was easier to put me in second place because I never complained. "You never threatened to leave," she said. "Jessica threatens all the time and it scares me." It was exactly what my Aunt Linda had told me, but hearing it from my mother was different. I went to get the mother-of-pearl jewelry box that I had bought to replace my grandmother's. I placed it on the table. I told her I did not need inheritances or objects, but one thing she had never given me, to see me as someone who existed beyond my usefulness. She looked at the box for a long time, then said, in the voice I recognized from when she was truly vulnerable, "I think I learned how to love the wrong way." I did not get up to hug her. Not to be cruel, but because 18 years of my hugs had filled holes she needed to learn to fill herself. Sitting there without solving her problem was perhaps the most honest act of love I have ever shown her. Sophie appeared in the kitchen doorway, saw her grandmother, and stopped. My mother crouched down, opened her arms, and waited. She did not call to her. She waited. Sophie walked over slowly, but she went. My mother hugged her and whispered in her ear, "I missed you, my little girl." Before leaving, my mother told me she had started seeing a therapist, that Aunt Linda had insisted that it was being difficult but she was making progress. I did not ask for details. I just said I thought that was important. At the door she turned around one last time. Rebecca, thank you for everything you did all these years. I should have told you this a long time ago. Simple words, no drama, the most important one she has ever said to me. Spring arrived with a beautiful slowness this year. 5 months after that night, my mother sold the house in Austin. Her own decision. Made after talking with her therapist and Aunt Linda, she bought a smaller apartment closer to downtown. With homeowners association fees her pension can cover without anyone's help. She sent me a picture of the empty place. White walls, a window facing a tree-lined street. I wrote back, "It looks lovely." Jessica and I are still not close. I do not know if we will be. There is a lot between us that will take time. But in March she showed up in a way I did not expect. She sent me a package. Inside, wrapped in tissue paper, was my grandmother's mother-of-pearl jewelry box. The note was short. "I always knew it was yours. I took too long to return it. Sorry." I put the little box on my shelf. Next to it I placed the one I had bought. The two of them together, the original and the one that existed to fill an absence, seemed like a good summary of everything. David saw me looking at them one night and asked about it. "Full circle," I said. "Full box." He laughed and turned off the light. Sophie sleeps in a room that has a nightlight, a favorite blanket, a soft pillow, and the certainty that no one is going to take any of that away from her. Every night when I turn off her light she tells me the same thing. "Mommy, I like sleeping in my bed." Every night I reply, "Me too, my love." I never reactivated the monthly transfers to my mother, not out of resentment, but because I understood that limitless money was not love. It was a system that prevented us from having a real relationship. When my mother needs something now, she will ask me for it, and when she asks, I will consider it. That is the difference between caring for someone and being absorbed by someone. My father asked me to take care of the family. I kept my promise. For 18 years I fulfilled it in the only way I thought possible. But caring for others does not mean erasing yourself. Caring does not mean kneeling on the cold floor so others can have a bed. Caring is also knowing when to stand up, take your daughter's hand and walk out the door. The floor of that living room was not the place where I fell apart. It was the place where I finally saw myself clearly enough to leave. And sometimes on quiet days when Sophie runs around barefoot and David makes coffee and I am on the couch with a book I am not reading because I am just listening to the sound of my life working, I think about that night not with bitterness but with a strange gratitude. The kind that only makes sense when you are already on the other side. The floor taught me the value of the place where I am now, and I will never again sleep where I am not welcome. Comment. Hey there, I wanted to share something that really stayed with me after this story. Setting healthy boundaries is one of the kindest things you can do for yourself and the people around you. You don't have to keep giving endlessly just to feel loved or needed. Protecting your peace isn't selfish. It's responsible, especially when you have little ones watching. Real healing begins the moment you stop pretending the situation is okay. It's okay to step back and choose calm over constant emotional drain. True love and respect always go both ways. Never just one person carrying everything. Taking care of your own heart actually makes you stronger for the family you truly value. I hope this reminds you to pause and check how you are being treated in your own relationships. You deserve relationships that lift you up, not ones that quietly wear you down. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.